Okay, today's day 2 of chapter 5, section 2, writing equations in standard and point slope forms. Yesterday we pretty much focused just on point slope form. Today we're going to get into the standard form part of things. We vaguely talked about standard form in the past. Does anyone remember, without looking at their textbook, what standard form is?
No. Point thing. Oh, y equal or y minus y.
No, that's point slope.
Oh,
I'm asking about standard form.
right. And it's supposed to be
Nope, that's slope-intercept form. You remember?
I have a guess, but I think it's
Okay.
wrong. Is it a squared plus b squared plus c squared?
No,
Okay, yeah.
Y minus y.
no, it's okay.
and
We're going to go over it. The standard form of a linear equation is ax plus by equals c. You need to write that down.
I knew that.
There are multiple conditions that need to be met also for it to be in standard form. And you need to write those down as well. They follow standard form. Where a, the number in front of x, is greater than or equal to 0. What numbers are greater than 0? What types of numbers?
Positive.
Positive. So the number in front of x needs to either be 0 or some positive number. If it's negative, it's not in standard form. Okay? Another condition that needs to be met. A and B are not both 0. One of them can be 0, but they're not both 0 at the same time. And A, B, and C are all integers with a greatest common factor of 1. So essentially, can't have fractions. Okay? A has to be positive or 0. A and B can't both be 0. And then A, B, and C cannot be fractions. Any questions for me here?
No.
Yes?
We can't have not eight. That's not.
So yeah, this is way farther back in a different section. I screenshotted this and added it to our notes. So that way we could be reminded of what standard form is. So write this down.
Okay.
Everyone needs to write this down because this is farther in a previous section in the back, or in a previous chapter that we recently learned, or learned last semester, I believe. So, like I said, you need to know what standard form is. You need to know what conditions need to be met in order for it to be in standard form. Okay? So, 2x plus 5y equals 7. That's in standard form because x and y are on the left. My constant is on the right. Let's check the conditions. What's my a value? 2. What's my b value?
5.
5. What's my c value?
7.
7. Is my a value greater than or equal to 0?
Greater.
Yes. It was a yes or no question. Is it greater than or equal to 0?
Yes.
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 It is. Are a and b both 0?
No.
No. That's good. I don't want them to both be 0. A, b, and c, are any of those fractions?
No.
No. So these meet all my conditions for standard form. So this is an example of a correct equation in standard form.
Real.
Okay? We okay with that?
Yep.
Let's look at this equation. X equals negative 3. What's my a value?
1.
1. Do I have a y term?
No.
No, so what would my b value be?
0.
0. And what's my c value?
Negative 3.
Negative 3. Let's check the conditions. Is my a value greater than or equal to 0?
Yes.
Yes. Are a and b both 0?
No.
No, I don't want them to both be, so that's good. Are a, b, or c, are any of them fractions?
No.
No. So this is also an equation in standard form. Okay? Any questions about that?
No.
Here in a second, we're going to be rewriting equations in standard form. So to do that, we're going to want x and y to the left of the equal sign. We're going to want our constant to the right. And then we're going to want it to meet all of these conditions. Okay? Any questions about any of that? Are we still writing? Give you a few more seconds. Okay, write y minus 1 equals negative 2/5 times the quantity x plus 3 in standard form. Standard form is another form of a linear equation. So now we got three of them. Slope-intercept, point-slope, and standard form. We got to know the difference between all three. Okay? So it wants our answer written in standard form. That's the ax plus by equals c. A can't be negative. A and b can't both be 0. A, b, and c cannot be fractions. Okay? So, any ideas what we need to do first here, trying to get x and y to the left and constants on the right? What would you guys do first here? Distributive property, yeah. I'm going to simplify both sides of the equal sign if I'm able to. Can I do any simplifying here? Nope, there's no like terms, there's no parentheses. There's parentheses over here, though, that I can use distributive property to get rid of. Negative 2/5 times x. Negative 2/5 x. Negative 2/5 times 3. Not negative 2. Negative 2/5 times 3. Negative 6/5. We okay with distributive property? Okay, where would you guys go from here? Yeah, we could add 1 to both sides, because for standard form, we want our constants to the right side of the equal sign, right? Can't do any more simplifying over here, can I? So I can start moving stuff around in the equation. We're going to add 1. What does 1 add to? The negative 2/5 x or the negative 6/5 or both? The negative 6/5. The other constant, right? It's not a like term with negative 2/5 x, so it goes with negative 6/5. What's negative 6/5 plus 1?
Negative 1/5.
Negative 1/5. Questions there? Okay, what next? Trying to get it in standard form here.
Let's see.
A is add by.
What?
Add 2/5.
Yeah. I want x and y on the same side of the equation on the left over here. Right now I just have y. So I want to bring my x term over here with it. It's a negative 2/5 x minus 1/5. So I'm going to add 2/5 x to cancel it out over here. Whatever I do to one side, got to do to the other. Are these two things like terms? No. Is everyone okay if I put the x term first, since we're doing it in standard form?
Yeah.
Okay, so 2/5 x plus y equals negative 1/5. Okay, I got everything where it needs to go. My x and y on the left, my constant on the right. After I get everything where it needs to go, now I need to start checking all those conditions. Okay? So right now, what is my a value? 2/5. Well, is that number greater than or equal to 0?
No.
Yeah. A is positive right now, so that meets that condition so far. What's my b value? 1. Are a and b both 0? No, so that's good. That checks out. What is my c value?
Negative 1/5.
Negative 1/5. So a is 2/5, b is 1, c is negative 1/5. Do I have any fractions here?
Yes.
Yeah, do I want them to be fractions?
No.
No. So I've got to get rid of my fractions. How am I going to do that?
Top divided by bottom.
Do what?
Top divided by bottom.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Top divided by bottom.
Not top divided by bottom. That'll just convert it to a decimal for me, which is just essentially another form of a fraction. How do I cancel out a fraction? let's switch gears here. I'm about to write a problem on the board that I'm just making up for you guys. It has nothing to do really with this problem, so don't freak out on me, okay? If I gave you x over 3 equals 7, and I said solve for x, how would you cancel out the denominator?
Divide by,
Not divide by 3.
Multiply.
Multiply by 3 to cancel out the denominator, right? Yeah. So here, both of my denominators are 5, right? So I can multiply the whole equation by 5. We're using multiplication, so every term has to be multiplied by 5, including this middle y term. Okay? So what's 2/5 x times 5? 2/5 times 5. 2x.
2x.
What's y times 5?
5
Plus 5y. And then what is negative 1/5 times 5?
-1.
Negative 1. Okay. Do I have any more fractions? No. Let's make sure and double check that it meets all of our conditions here. What is A? 2. What is B? 5. What is C? Negative 1. Is my A value greater than or equal to 0? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Are A and B both 0?
No.
No. Good. Are A, B, and C all integers, meaning are none of them fractions?
Yes.
Yes. So does it meet all my conditions?
Yes.
Yep. So this is now standard form.
Alright.
Questions, comments, concerns there? It must meet all of those conditions in order to be in standard form. Okay? We good? Okay. How we feel about standard form?
Awesome.
There's a lot more going on than point slope or slope intercept because it's got to meet all these conditions. But are we okay with those conditions? A can't be negative. A and B can't both be 0 at the same time. A, B, and C cannot be fractions. Okay? Let's move on. Okay, example 6 here. Write an equation in standard form for the line that passes through 8, negative 4, and negative 6, negative 11. We want our answer in which form? Standard. AX plus BY equals C plus all the conditions that come with it. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How am I going to do this? This is kind of combining yesterday's lesson with today's lesson.
Y2 minus
To find what?
slope.
Yeah, very good. I don't know my slope here. I'm not given the equation straightforward. So I've got to go ahead and find my slope. Okay. What's my y2 value?
Negative 11.
Negative 11. Bring the minus sign from the formula. What's y1?
Negative 4.
Negative 4. Over, what's my x2 value? Negative 6. Minus, what's my x1 value?
8.
8. We okay with how we plugged in?
Yeah.
I'd make sure that I'm writing all this down as we go. We have a quiz coming up on either Monday or Tuesday of next week, and you can use your notes on a quiz. This will be on your quiz. I shouldn't have to remind you of that, but I will. Because I'm being nice. I feel generous today. You're welcome. Two negatives right next to each other creates a positive. So this, the numerator becomes a negative 11 plus 4, which gives me what? Negative 7. Down in the denominator, negative 6 minus 8 gives me negative 14. A negative divided by a negative gives me a positive. Can 7 over 14 be reduced?
Yes.
Yeah, what are 7 and 14 both divisible by? 7. 7 divided by 7. 1. 14 divided by 7. 2. My slope of this equation is going to be 1/2. Of course, it would be a fraction since we can't have fractions for standard form. We okay with that? Okay, where would you go from here? So there's a couple of ways you could go here. You could do that. You could use point slope form with one of your points and your slope to create an equation that you would then convert to standard form. Or you could do like we did in 5.1 and use slope-intercept form to find your missing y-intercept. You could go either direction. So do you guys want to use slope-intercept form or point-slope form? Slope-intercept? Okay. So y equals mx plus b. We're doing this in order to find a missing y-intercept. Does it matter which point I use? No. Which one do you guys want to use?
2.
Second one? Is that what you said? You said 2?
Yes, that's right.
So we'll use -6, -11, and our slope to plug in here to find our missing b value. So what am I plugging in for y? -11. What am I plugging in for m?
-6.
1/2.
1/2, right? My slope. What am I plugging in for x?
6.
-6, the x value from the ordered pair. And now I'm trying to find b. What's half of -6?
3.
-3. How would I get b by itself?
Plus 3.
Add 3. -11 plus 3. -8. How does that help me out? What? That's our y-intercept. So right now I've got a slope and a y-intercept, so I could write an equation in what form? Not yet. Slope-intercept. If I'm given a slope and a y-intercept, I can plug into slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b, right? So what would that equation look like?
Y equals 1/2 x plus -8.
Y equals 1/2 x minus 8. Is that my final answer?
No,
Why not?
it wants
I have an equation, which it wants an equation, but it wants it in standard form, this with all the conditions, not slope-intercept form. So from here, I can start putting stuff into standard form now. Okay? So from here, where would you go?
Put
we got 1/2 x.
Yep, neither side can be simplified, so I can start moving stuff around right off the bat. I want to get x and y to the same side. So I get -1/2 x plus y equals -8. That's looking more like standard form. Everything's where it needs to go, right? Now I've got to check all my conditions. What's my a value?
1/2.
-1/2. Is that greater than or equal to 0?
No,
No.
it's also
So I'm going to have to get rid of that negative. And I heard someone say it's also a fraction, which I cannot have. Okay? So, let's take care of that in one step instead of 2 steps. How would I get rid of this fraction?
Multiply by 8.
Multiply by, what's the denominator?
2.
2. How could I also get rid of the negative in this same step?
Negative.
-2. A negative times a negative gives me a positive. So this will make my a value positive, and it'll get rid of my fraction for me at the same time. Does that make sense? Double whammy. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right?
Right.
So -1/2 x times -2 gives me positive 1x, right? Or just x. Y times -2.
Negative 2.
-2y. -8 times -2. 16. What's my a value? 1. What's my b value? -2. C value? 16. Is my a value greater than or equal to 0? Yep. Are a and b both 0? Nope. Good. Do I have any fractions for a, b, or c? No. So is this standard form? Yes, it is. Here's my equation in standard form. We okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Like I said, another way you could have approached this is using one of your points and the slope to put into point slope form. Once you plug into point slope form, You would just then have to convert this to standard form. You should get the same answer. Okay? Do y'all need to see that?
No.
You sure? Okay. Questions, comments, or concerns?
No, sir.
Can I move on?
Yes.
Sir.
Okay. Equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. Without reading any of this information, what do we know about parallel lines? What does parallel mean?
They are touched.
They don't touch. They will never intersect with each other. What do we know about perpendicular lines if we know anything?
They intersect.
Okay. Not all lines that intersect are perpendicular though. They intersect in a specific manner.
Oh, okay. Slope is -1.
No.
Oh, okay.
Could be. How do they intersect?
They're non-vertical. Go the opposite direction.
I'm so confused.
They form specific angles when they intersect.
X.
What angles do they form when they intersect with each other? Right angles. Perpendicular lines intersect to form right angles. What are right angles? 90 degrees. Okay? That's how they intersect in a specific way.
So hard.
Okay? They intersect to form right angles. So, non-vertical lines in the same plane that have the same slope are called parallel lines. You need to write that down. You need to write that down. You need to know that parallel lines have the same slope. Everyone good with that? Non-vertical lines that are parallel have the same slope. Parallel. Parallel lines have the same slope. Which makes sense. They're two different lines, but they're never going to intersect. Their rate of change or their slope is going to be the exact same. Non-vertical lines in the same plane for which the product of the slopes is -1 are called perpendicular lines. I want you to add something to this about perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines have what we call opposite reciprocal slopes. What's the reciprocal? I said opposite reciprocal.
So the same.
No. Does anyone know what a reciprocal is?
This is two things that are switched.
What's flipped? Reciprocal is a flipped fraction. Okay?
I knew that.
So opposite is talking about the sign. What's the opposite of negative?
Positive.
Positive. What's the opposite of positive? Negative. So opposite reciprocal. Go ahead and write that down. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. Okay? If I gave you 2/3, what's the reciprocal of 2/3? 3/2. 2/3 is positive. What's the opposite of positive?
Negative.
Negative. So the opposite reciprocal of 2/3 would be -3/2. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Let's say I gave you -4/5. What's the reciprocal of 4/5? 5/4. 4/5 is negative. So what's the opposite of negative? Positive. The opposite reciprocal of -4/5 is positive 5/4. Is that making sense?
Yes, sir.
Opposite's talking about the sign. Reciprocal is talking about flipping the fraction. Okay? Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. Let's say I gave you 3. What's the reciprocal of 3?
Negative.
Nope.
Is it -3
How would I make 3 a fraction?
1/3.
divided by
Over 1. So what's the reciprocal of 3?
3/1?
1/3. 3 is positive. What's the opposite of positive? Negative. So the opposite reciprocal of 3 would be -1/3. We good there? Let's say I gave you, oops. 1/4. What's the reciprocal of 1/4?
Negative. 4.
4/1 or just 4. What's the opposite of positive? Negative. So the opposite reciprocal of positive 1/4 would be -4. Are we getting what I'm meaning when I say opposite reciprocal? For them to be perpendicular, they have opposite signs and they're reciprocals. Okay? Parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. When I multiply a number by its opposite reciprocal, it gives me -1. That's why it has this information of the product of the slopes is -1. Okay? It's the negative reciprocal, or opposite reciprocal being multiplied by the other slope. Any questions about that? So, if two non-vertical lines are parallel, their slopes are the same. Oops. Slope of these two lines, I'm going up 1 and right 2. Well, that doesn't make sense. Never mind. Never mind. Disregard what I just said. Both of these lines, I'm going up 2.5 and right 5 to get from one point to the other. So they have the same slope, meaning they are parallel lines. Okay? For this, our perpendicular lines, the product of their slopes is -1, aka they have opposite reciprocal slopes. This one is positive or negative? Negative because it's going downhill from left to right. This one is positive. There's the opposite part of it. They're opposite signs of each other. This one looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1, 2, 3. And this one looks like it is 1, 2. Oh my goodness, I can't count. I'm confusing myself here. Okay, I'm confusing myself. Okay. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. They intersect to form right angles. Okay? Any questions about that information? You need to know those two things. Parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slope. Okay?
Yes, I got it.
Okay. You can write an equation of a line parallel or perpendicular to a given line if you know a point on the line and an equation of the line, the given line. I would write these steps down in my notes. Okay? So, parallel lines have what kind of slope? Parallel lines have what kinds of slope? Parallel lines have what kinds of slope? The same or opposite reciprocal? Or the same. Parallel lines have the same slope. So if I'm given the equation of a line that I want to be parallel to, I need to identify that slope. And I'm going to use the same exact slope as that line.
Wow.
Right? Because I want it to be parallel to it. So identify the given slope, the slope m of the given line. Step 2, use the point that you're given. Use the point slope form with slope m and the coordinates of the given point. We're going to be given a point and a slope, so it makes sense to plug into point slope form, correct? Step 3, rewrite the equation in whatever form it wants your answer in. It could say, hey, write it in slope intercept form. Or write it in point slope form, or write it in standard form. You got to pay attention to what form it wants your answer in. Okay? For perpendicular lines have what types of slopes?
Opposite.
Opposite reciprocal slopes. So I need to identify the slope of my given equation. And I need to change, change its sign and flip the fraction to get the slope that I want, since I want it perpendicular to it. Once again, we'll have a point and a slope at that point. So we're going to use point slope form to plug in to get an equation. Step 3, once again, rewrite the equation in whatever form it asks you for your answer. Okay? Once again, that could be point slope, slope intercept, or standard form. We tracking with me?
Yes.
Can I move on, or are we still writing?
I'm still right.
Okay, give you some time. Let's go ahead and try to get this last, or not the last, but the second to last example in. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line that passes through negative 4, 2, and is parallel to the graph of y equals 3x minus 5.
Oh.
Okay? Are we dealing with parallel or perpendicular?
Parallel.
Parallel.
Parallel. So we're using those steps to the left of that chart that we wrote down. Okay? Parallel lines have what types of slopes?
Same.
Same slope. So what does step 1 tell me to do?
Right?
What? Step 1 that we just wrote down on the left side of the chart. It's in your textbook.
Find the slope.
Find the slope of the given line. Here's my given line, right?
Yep.
So, what is the slope of this line?
3.
3. The number being multiplied by x, right? The line that I'm creating the equation for needs to be parallel to this line. So it needs to have what type of slope with this line? The
Same.
same. So what slope am I using for my line? 3. I'm using m equals 3. Okay? We okay with that? Now, the notes specifically tell you to use point slope form. We could use slope intercept form like we did on the previous example to create our equation. Let's look at point slope form since we did slope intercept earlier.
Okay.
What is point slope form?
Y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1.
There you go. We've got a point, we've got a slope, so we can definitely plug into point slope form here. Okay? So, what's my y1 value? So I put y minus 2 equals, what's my slope that I'm using? 3, because it's got to be parallel to this one, which also has a slope of 3. Times x minus, what's the x value?
-4.
Negative 4. Is everyone okay if I put plus 4?
Sure.
Do we understand why I put plus 4?
Yes. Yeah.
Any confusion there?
No.
We're subtracting negative 4, so it's going to turn to plus 4.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Is this my answer?
No.
No,
Why?
because we have to work it.
Do I have to put it in standard form?
Get y by itself.
Why?
I don't know.
Bye, John.
You're correct.
Okay.
What does the problem tell me?
Writing equation with these slope.
Slope intercept form.
My answer needs to be in slope intercept form. What is slope intercept form?
Y equals mx plus b.
Y equals mx plus b. So like someone said, I need to solve this equation for y now. Okay? How would I do that?
Distributive property.
Distribute. Y minus 2 equals 3x plus 12. Add 2 to both sides to get y by itself. Sorry, I'm moving fast. We're running out of time.
What time is it?
12 plus 2 gives me 14. There's my equation. Slope-intercept form.
Oh.
Does it have the same slope as this one?
Yeah.
Yep. So these are parallel lines. This line is going through the point negative 4, 2. Okay?
Hooray.
Any questions on this example? So, hey, sit down. Quit putting stuff away. Like I said, we could plug into slope-intercept form to find our missing y-intercept. Plug 2 in for y, 3 in for m, negative 4 for x, to find your missing b value. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Add 12 to both sides. b equals 14. Plug your slope in for m. Plug your 14 in for B, your y-intercept, and you got your equation doing it that way if you want to.
Yes, sir.
Whichever method you prefer, you could use. Okay? Any questions about any of the notes we just took?
No.
Okay, we'll finish these up on Monday.